Before we get into our program, we're going to do a real quick summary. So our topic we're going to discuss today is the prevention and treatment of sexually transmitted diseases. Our target population will be college students that attend CSULB and are between the ages of 18 through 24 years old. Our settings will be a mobile clinic affiliated with the CSU system. The mobile clinic is primarily located on the campus of Cal State Long Beach, and it will be adjacent to the Student Health Services Center. And our type of prevention is tertiary. We have three objectives. Our first objective is by the end of the program in May of 2023, the experimental group will increase their knowledge of STD prevention by 40% compared to the control group, which will be measured at post-test through a self-administered questionnaire, which would be questions 6 through 19. Our second objective is by the end of the program in May of 2023, the experimental group will change their attitudes towards STDs by 25% compared to the control group, which will be measured at post-test through a self-administered questionnaire, which would be questions 20 through 34. And our third objective is by the end of the program in May of 2023, the experimental group will decrease their risky sexual behavior by 30% compared to the control group, which will be measured at post-test through a self-administered questionnaire, which would be questions 35 through 42. The population for our program will consist of college students that currently attend CSULB and CSULA. CSULB students will be our experimental group, and CSULA students will be our control group. Students will be between the ages of 18 through 24 years old. All genders, all ethnicities, and all race are welcome to participate. Students who reside in dorms, commute, or live off campus with their parents. Students who are symptomatic or have tested positive for an STD. Students who engage in risky sexual behaviors or have a history of having multiple sexual partners. And students that have been referred to our program by either school personnel, peers, family members, or themselves.
Now we're going to be talking about the sampling and recruitment methods. To select our representative sample, we'll be using a stratified random sampling method. The inclination to use this method is due to the available population list provided by Cal State Long Beach and Cal State LA Student Health Services Center. The sampling of our groups are derived from two publicly funded government institutes that are located in the same county. These two institutes share a similar social demographic. For example, Cal State Long Beach has a population size of 13,711 students, and those are 40.8% males and 59.2% females, which share a 47.7% Hispanics, 20% Asians, and 16.7% whites, and 4.04% African Americans, while Cal State LA has a population size of 26,745 students, which has 41.8% males, has 15.9% females, which shares a 75.8% Hispanic, 11.2% Asians, 5.8% whites, and 3.9% African Americans. Now, we classified them into stratums through grade classes, for example, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors, and we separated them through male and female, but we threw in together all races and ethnicities. Now, these demographics and methods will aid in providing a representative sample to provide generalizable results from the sample to the population. Now, the stratification of characteristics also imply a separation of male and females to provide a more comfortable environment due to the nature of our STD prevention program. Now, when we're done, a simple running sample method is used after the completion of our stratums. A number will be assigned to each one of the students on the stratum and will be chosen by a computer generator to ensure there's full equality among our population. Now we're going to be talking about the sample size. Type 1 error, if we're rejecting the null hypothesis, or if we're failing to reject the null hypothesis, this will be determined with an alpha of 0.05 to show statistical significance and effectiveness of our program. And after we're done with type 1 error, type 2 error will determine the ineffectiveness of the program based on the sampling data with an equation of beta equals 1 minus 4.05, which equals 0.8. Now we have three effect sizes. For example, objective 1 in our program, we're trying to increase knowledge by 40% which the effect size equals 2.40. In objective 2, we're trying to change the attitude of our population by 25%, which our effect size equals to 0.25. And in objective 3, we're trying to decrease the risk sexual behaviors by 30%, which our effect size is 0.30. So we have 3 effect sizes, which necessitates a small effect size and requires a large sample size. So the total sample size for objective 1 is 110, for objective 2 is 288, and for objective 3 it's 176. Now, these are the total sample sizes for recruitment, but they also include both experimental and control group. So for our experimental methodology, the evaluation research design we'll be utilizing for our program is the classical experimental design, which is a practical framework because we're conducting in our program, we're using an experimental and a control group, which they will also receive a pre and post test during the same time and the same location while we're ensuring representativeness through random assignment. Now, it is also an effective design to display a guided comparison between both groups due to the 2 points of measurement. This also provides statistical evidence of cause and effect variables, and this framework also has the most strongest design to control 8 out of 12 threats to validity. Now, for our location, the experimental group will be located at Cal State Long Beach, and our control group will be located in Cal State LA. Again, to shortly touch on the stratification, we need to create our 2 groups as equal as possible. So we gather a sample from 2 colleges and ensure a similar demographics and a similar geological location. Then we place our population into similar categorical stratum, and then we randomize them into our sample size into groups. Now, for this framework, there are some mitigations of threats to validity. For example, there's history, maturation, testing, and instrumentation. But for our history, our target population will have some prior knowledge due to pre-screen and testing from student health services, which will not affect our population at this time. But maturation will, for our program, specify a 1-year timeline, which will delay any pathological changes that might occur. And when it comes to testing, the questions will be rearranged from the pre-test to the post-test so that students now remember the questions in chronological order. And in instrumentation, in order to not allow confounding outcomes, each instrument will have to be thoroughly tested and reviewed to show that each component of the instrument is performing what its intended test. So now I am going to hand it off to Emily. Thank you, guys.
Formalization of concepts, data collection method. We chose an in-person self-administered questionnaire. The pretest will be given in the college's student health services room, and it will be distributed to both colleges. So all students, the experimental group and the control group, will receive the same questionnaire. This will be done in the initial visit, and then the post-test will be done on the final clinical visit, and it will consist of the same questionnaire, and it will be administered to both colleges at the end of the 2022-2023 school year. We chose this approach as the results, we are expecting the results to show an understanding of prevalence of STDs, an awareness of what STDs are, and then just sexual behavior practices among the college students. It will enable the responses to be honest, and there will be no pressure from the interviewers or anybody else to answer falsely. The setting, same thing, offers a anxious-free, confidential, calm, and even relaxing environment so they can answer honestly. The time period, we chose this time period because this will allow for as many college students to reach our program so that we can, create the best program for them. And then the cost, it was just very cost efficient. And we just felt this will best define our answers. Okay, A little bit about the pre and post test. So we're basing it off three main objectives. We want to understand the knowledge that the students have. So in objective one, we state that by May 2023, the experimental group will increase their knowledge of STD prevention by 40%. Objective two assesses the attitudes of the participants towards STDs. So this one is, by May 2023, the experimental group will change their attitudes towards STDs by 25%. And then objective three assesses the behaviors that these students may have of high-risk sex. So objective three states, by 2023, the experimental group will decrease their risky sexual behavior by 30% compared to the control group measured at post-test through a self-administered questionnaire. We chose 6 specific demographic variables, which consist of age, class standing, gender, sexual partners, race and ethnicity, and social economic status. This will allow us to understand which category each of the students fall in and how it's affected them personally. So for example, maybe their social economic status has prevented them from being able to have access to prevention programs or any extra knowledge. And then these are just a few of the questions that we will provide on the pre and post test. Objective one focuses on the understanding. So for example, one question would be, which of the following are sexually transmitted diseases? And then they have options to choose from, and they also have the option of I don't know. Another example is select all that apply. Which of the following symptoms are STD related? And it gives them general discharge of various ways. It's itching, burning, discomfort around genitals. Another option is painful urination. Another one is painful sex, and then none. For objective two, a question that we have is, I cannot catch an STD because I only have one sexual partner. Strongly agree, all the way to strongly disagree. And then another option is, I feel I have a basic knowledge of STDs and their consequences to myself and partners. Strongly agree, all the way to strongly disagree. Objective three states, which of the following have mostly partaken with which of the following have you mostly partaken in within the last month? Vaginal sex without a condom, vaginal sex with a condom, oral sex without a condom, and oral sex without a condom.
Next, we are going to be talking about the formative evaluation methods and pilot testing. So we would get help by using the experts in the field, such as content, population, and setting experts. Some of the qualifications that will be used and will be looked for are people who are, for content experts, is specialists in information and overall views and subjects of the program. For population experts, it would be specialists who understands the people who are being surveyed, questioned, and helped. And the setting expert, specialists knowing not just the population in the group, but also societal factors and trends seen within groups and also in the environment as well. We will use information and utilization of stakeholders. Information that will be received and elicited through surveys is data that is meant to improve on the well-being of program recipients and views on receiving help and how to receive help. If there's any information that does not end up in any of these objectives or any of these questions, then it simply would not be used. And in the community input or the focus groups, it would be on college students, and it would be retained and helped by survey, and having those who come look for help instead of having unwilling participants be part of the survey and expand on threats to validity. And a little bit more will be talked about in the next slide. So process evaluation, monitoring of the program. For each component, we will monitor the program by reaching its target population by following up as the school year progresses. And attrition would be mitigated by increasing the incentive from $5 to $10 to continue to retain response rate. Methods that will be used to monitor the program implementation will be through staff meetings and randomly sitting in sessions for more authentic interactions, which is falling under the observation method. And another method that will be implemented to maintain satisfaction and progress will be satisfaction surveys after each session or contact. We will be specific on being asked, such as, did you have any suggestions on improvements? Or another question that we would ask is, what was one part of the survey that was beneficial to you? And asking soon after will keep information fresh in their minds without forgetting what has been experienced or thought of during the survey.
So now we're going to get into the rationale for the choices of our statistical techniques. We'll start with descriptive statistics, and here we would report our variables with a table based off the fact that most of our questions are ratio, nominal, or ordinal levels of measurement. So therefore, a table would be the best for reporting these. An example of why is because some of our questions have answers that range from most likely to least likely. And this allows us to then assign numbers to these answers and implement these numbers in a table. And we could then measure the variables this way. We would then be looking at the mean of each objective, considering that each of our objectives seek to compare the experimental group to the control group. And we would then use standard deviation to measure the typical deviation of individuals from the mean to see how consistently individuals were affected by the program and address any outliers. And then frequency tables would be our most commonly used layout. As for the inferential statistics, our first objective is that by the end of the program in May 2023, the experimental group will increase their knowledge of STD prevention by 40% compared to the control group, measured at a post-test through a self-administered questionnaire. The dependent variable for this objective would be the knowledge of STD prevention among the two different groups, and this would be an interval level of measurement, and then the independent variable would be the two different groups of college students from the two different universities, and this would be a nominal level of measurement. A t-test would then be used here to measure the level of difference of the mean of the knowledge of STD prevention among both groups. As for the timeline of our program, beginning in August of 2022, we would conduct our needs assessment to address the community that needs help through our program, as well as begin the program development in August and September of 2022 to get the beginning guidelines of what we want to do with our program. We would begin sampling in August and September to begin to form the groups that we seek to aid. And we would then administer the pre-test in September to get an idea of where all of our students stand when it comes to STD knowledge and prevention. Program implementation would then run from September all the way until the end of the academic year in May 2023. We would have some data analysis take place in December and January, which would mark the halfway mark of the program, to gauge the process that our students have made in this time. And we would also do some light report writing in this time to help with our report in May. We would then begin the evaluation of our program in February of 2023 so that we have plenty of time to evaluate what went wrong and what went right in our program. Our post-test would take place in April and May so that we also have time to analyze all the data from our program in these 2 months as well. And then this would lead to the final writing of the report in April and May of 2023 so that we could have the report ready to publish as soon as possible with all our results in it.